So thank you for joining us today. We are going to be doing some training on Excelsior. This is just a preliminary background of some of the nuances of the Excelsior Scholarship. The 24-25 application closed as of August 31st. We are going to be opening the spring application for Excelsior December 17th. So if your students missed the full year application and want to try and apply for the spring term, or if they are a spring admit, we will be opening it on December 17th. We will send an announcement as we get closer to that date, but that is the target date for the new application to go out. Remember that if the student is started in the fall, but did not do an Excelsior application and now do a spring application, they would be eligible going forward, but they would not be eligible for fall 2024 payment. For 2025, 24-25, the combined federal adjusted gross income is $125,000, and we follow what the FAFSA and the TAP do, so we'll be looking at tax year 2022. For our DREAM Act applicants, the students must complete a DREAM Act eligibility application first, and that application determines if they are eligible for something under the DREAM Act. So we look at residency, we look at citizenship, we look at education. So that is a complete application for eligibility under the DREAM Act. And once that eligibility is approved, applicants can move on to apply for Excelsior and TAP and our other scholarship opportunities that would be open at the time, but they do need to be approved under the DREAM Act first. And just so you know, there are two different portals where the application is stored, but for the DREAM Act applicants, they are, the application period is open for Excelsior and all our scholarships for the same time as it is for those who apply through the mainframe at HESC. So it is the same application period for both programs. So talk a little bit about the credit verification process. As you know, the Excelsior Scholarship is all about on-track completion. So we do require applicants to go through a credit verification process. So we have automated this a little bit to try and get some of the students cleared who we know are first-time applicants. So what we have set up is HES sends a file to the State Education Department with all Excelsior applicants who indicated that they are first-time students. SED processes this file and provides HESC with the high school graduation date for all students that are found in their system. We take that file and we update the scholarship system with those who are determined to be by SED to be first-time students. So for the 24-25 full year, we determine a first-time student as a first-time college student is considered someone who has graduated from high school between April 2024 and August 2024. So those don't ever go out to the school if we can identify through SED that they are a first-time recipient. Any student who was not found as a high school graduate for 2024 is sent out on a credit verification file to the schools for review. We also send you those who indicated that they were previously attended college because they would have a credit history. And so we do send that out to the schools as well. For the spring application, we do not utilize the SED process. It's a much smaller applicant pool, and we do not, because at that time we don't really know from SED, like we would not consider April to August as first time because they could have gone in the fall. So we do not use the SED process for the spring term, but for the full year application, this is the process. So determining on-time completion. So for those that you get, and most of you, I would imagine, have this already automated. There are very few schools that are looking this up manually, which is fantastic. I know a lot of you work with the SECA Center at SUNY, and so this is automated. So students have to be on track for on-time completion with no break in attendance since first matriculation, and they need to earn credits based on the below schedule. So you're going to get a copy of this presentation. We're going to post it out to our website. We're also going to provide the recording out on the website. So if you have colleagues that were not able to join, you'll have all this. So the one thing I want to point out is, and this is specific for spring term, if you have a student that I mentioned earlier that started in the fall of 24 and then did not do the application and now wants to apply for spring, if a student has completed one term of college, they have to earn 15 credits to be approved. Some schools were saying, but 12 credits, they're full time. The decision was made that one term would have to be 15 credits. So just so you're aware of that when you're counseling your students for the spring application. So here's how the application review process works for HES. So the student applies online in either mechanism. We review the applications to determine eligibility. That includes income, credit verification. We look at residency. We look at citizenship, default status. So we review the applications to determine if they're eligible. If a student is approved, an email is sent to the student to sign the Excelsior contract, which is the last step in the approval process. Student signs the contract. The status is updated on the HES system, and this is on the scholarship system that you schools cannot see, but then we move it over to our mainframe and you would be able to see it online on the view student record part of the website. If there's a student ID on file, the student goes out on an SSL to the school. If the student is denied, we send them an email to log into their account for further details, and we give them the reason why they are not approved. So initial and maintaining eligibility. So we're going to break this down by Excelsior applicants and Excelsior recipients. So for an applicant who is initially deemed ineligible because they have an insufficient amount of credits to be on track, and then they take an extra term and they catch up on that credit, they can reapply for the scholarship once they meet the credit requirements. So student took 12 credits in the fall, applied for the spring, ineligible because they didn't meet the one term 15 credit threshold. Then they take 15 credits in the spring and they take 3 credits in the summer. So they have now 30 credits in that year. They can apply for a fall Excelsior and they would be approved because they have 30 credits in the year. They made up that 3 credits in the summer. So those are for applicants. However, for Excelsior recipients, so they've already been approved and they have already attended a term and you're certifying or decertifying them for eligibility. So if it's an Excelsior recipient who loses eligibility for not meeting the 30 credits per year, they cannot regain eligibility unless they receive an approved allowable interruption. And we're going to go through the allowable interruption process in a couple minutes. So that's the difference between applicants and recipients and maintaining an eligibility. So as you know, prior recipients and now all recipients must complete the free FAFSA and the TAP application every year as part of the renewal process. Students will not be eligible to receive an award unless they submit a New York State payment application. If the student is eligible in a previous year, and this is where it gets a little bit tricky sometimes. If the student is eligible in a previous year, they were eligible in 2023, and then they do the FAFSA and the TAP application, the Excelsior flag will roll over to the current year. So it'll roll over as eligible, even if the payment application is not yet completed. But they do need to complete the payment application, the TAP application, in order to receive a payment for this. Now, for this population, for 2023, a couple of weeks ago, we decertified those students who for 2023 never did a TAP application. So it was required and they did not do it. And now the TAP application for 2023 is closed. We did reach out to students a couple of times and tell them they needed to do one. So some of them probably maybe didn't attend. Some of them just didn't pay attention. I will be getting a list of that population And if you would like, we can get that information to you, because what you can do is you can take a look at these students. You also can get it off the student status listing. So we decertify them with a 9, and you can get that off the student status listing. And you can go in and look at the student, and maybe they just didn't do it for 23, but they enrolled and had 30 credits. You can certify them. They still will not be eligible for payment, so they still would need to be a 9 certification. But if you add in the enrolled credits, the evaluation year credits earned, and the total credits, they can maintain the eligibility in 2023, which would carry over to 2024. So we try to do this early because we don't want a student who is never going to receive a payment sit as pending on your system, and you're deferring the amount of the scholarship when they will never receive a payment. So that is why we are doing it a little earlier this year. So you're not carrying over a balance that a student will never be able to pay with an Excelsior scholarship. So if the student doesn't do a payment application, we send a notification, we're telling them, and it is still considered a complete for renewal. Income verification. So this is something that we put in place a couple of years ago. Verified income for a dependent student will not include the student's 2022 federal AGI if it was less than $12,950. And it is excluded regardless of whether or not the student filed taxes. And the reason that we took this approach is because the threshold to have to file a federal tax return in 2022 was $12,950. So what we were finding is some students were saying, no, I did not file. Their income was not counted, but other students filed for whatever reason, maybe to get a refund or a tax credit, and theirs was being counted. So for consistency, if you see a student who's dependent for 2022 and their federal AGI is less than $12,950, it will not be counted in the assessment of $125,000 or less. Just a couple processing reminders for credit verification. Continuing Excelsior recipients who transfer in good standing do not get a new credit verification request to the transfer school. I know that some schools had asked if we could get another credit verification, but we don't, and we set a policy to work around this that I'll talk about in a moment. The transfer school would be evaluating the eligibility during the Excelsior certification process. And the student would be eligible at the time of transfer for evaluation term 1, even if they didn't transfer enough credits. So let's drill down to that a little bit more. So if the student was eligible at school A for 2023, and at the end of the year, they were still eligible, they met the 30 credit requirement, perhaps they made the 60 credit if they were in the second year, they're going to roll over as eligible 1. So for Excelsior, they're going to be an eligible student in 2024. Then they come to your school. So evaluation term 1, they enroll in 12, they'll get the payment, right? Regardless of how many credits. So in your new school for 2024, evaluation term 1, the student has to enroll in at least 12 credits in their program of study, which is what the requirement is. They'll receive a payment only if it's evaluation term 1, regardless of how many credits you accepted from 2023. In evaluation term 2, the student must enroll in at least 12 credits, earn 30 credits for the year, and be on track for on-time completion. So what we're doing is we're giving them that first term so they can receive the award, and it gives them the winter and the summer to make up credits that were lost during the transfer credit process. And then again, this is only if they're in evaluation term 1 when they transfer. So here's an example. A student enrolls at XYZ Community College. They earn 15 credits for the first term and 30 for the year, 30 for the second year. So now they are on track. They have 60 credits for the year. Then now they transfer. So they transfer to a four-year school in one of these scenarios. So the transfer school accepts the 60 credits. The student is eligible for Excelsior. The transfer accepts less than 60 credits. The student is eligible for Excelsior in the fall if they enroll in 12 credits and it is considered evaluation term one. So that's kind of giving them the pass for the year if it didn't all transfer in. And then for the spring term, they have to enroll in at least 12 credits, complete 30, and be on track for on-time completion by the end of the summer. So in that, they would need to have 6 semesters and 90 credits in their program of study. So as we said, students have to successfully complete 30 credits a year to be eligible for payment with no break in enrollment unless granted an allowable interruption. And what we ask schools to do, and sometimes this is hard to do at the school level, but we ask schools if they can to take a look in that after that first term or in that first term to see if they're lacking 30 credits in the year so that they can have time and they know they need to either register for a winter or a summer class in their program of study to receive a payment and maintain eligibility going forward. So I know that some schools have like a process that will give you a report that says anybody who's an Excelsior recipient who may be deficient in credits, because this is not just for transfers. This could be for a student who, you know, took 12 credits and then is registered for 15 for the spring term. You want to have them get those extra 3 credits so they receive a payment and maintain eligibility going forward. So if possible, we ask you to see if you can get to the students and say, here, you need to add credits in order to maintain eligibility so there are no surprises. And as you are aware, summer and winter coursework can be used to fulfill the 30 credit requirement. It cannot be used in a fall or spring term to meet full-time status. So the 30 credit is what the summer and fall will help the student will. It will not help with full-time status. And as you know, there's no payment for a winter or summer term. So bank credits, I think most people have this part of the process pretty well under control. So those are credits earned as a non-matriculated student that can be used to fulfill the credit requirement. So there's a lot of kids that take college courses earned in high school, AP classes, CLEP classes, courses as part of job training or military. It does need to be as either an elective or a gen ed or as part of the program of study in order for these to be counted. They can only be used once during college career, and a first-time matriculated student should not have any bank credits added to their credit verification file because you can kind of keep those aside and use them as we go forward in the student's college career. Students using an they use accepted unused banked credits to replace a term, which is not considered a bank enrollment. So here's the example with that. A student with 18 unused AP credits graduates with an associate degree in 3 semesters and plans to start their bachelor's degree in the next academic year to kind of stay on track with the traditional cycle. They can use, those credits can be used to, for the missed term to provide continuous enrollment in order to be in the following term be eligible. So you can use the banked credits to replace a term, and in this case, the student graduated early. So what you would do is you would decertify the student with a 9, which is a miscellaneous denial. You would put 0 tuition, and you would provide the bank credits in the enrolled, evaluation year credit earned, and the total credit earned. So that shows continuously eligibility based on enrollment. So even though the student only went to school for the 3 terms, they did graduate, they were on track, and you can use that. You could also use that if they technically did not get a degree, as long as it gets them to 30 credits in the year and them to be on track. So they don't have to have an associate's degree. They can, but they don't have to. But if they had enough credits to replace it with a term, you can do that as well. So bank credits can be used for full-time enrollment. Students who enroll in fewer than 12 credits with any unused bank credits can also use that to be considered full-time. So there are a number of ways that the bank credits can be used. You're going to add the bank credits to the enrolled credits to meet the 12 credit requirement, and this is if you're trying to make them full-time. You're going to calculate the award based on actual tuition charge, and you're going to include the credits for the evaluation year, credits earned, and total credits earned. And just as a reminder, bank credits can only be used once. So let's talk about ADA students for a moment. So ADA students can go either the full-time path, or they are allowed to be part-time, but they must be continuously enrolled. So for part-time students, an ADA student must successfully complete all credits enrolled in each semester. And you're going to assess using the credits in their program of study only. And I'm going to show you an example in just a moment. So if a student does not earn all credits for all courses attempted, the missing credits must be earned in a winter or summer term to get back on track. If a student is full-time, the student does not need to complete all they enroll in if they complete 30 credits towards their program of study in the 365-day period, and you would just certify them as eligible for payment. If you use the flag for ADA at certification, that's fine, but our system will read a full-time student is, and the ADA flag is checked in two different ways. It'll look at it if the evaluation year credits are less than 30 credits, then it will look to see, did the student successfully complete all they enrolled in, and then make a payment that way. If the student is 30 credits or more, it ignores the rule about having to successfully complete all enrolled in. So supposing a full-time student is 16 credits for the fall and 17 credits for the spring, and they're an ADA student. They have 33 credits and they fail one 3-credit class. So as you do your certification, you're going to put down that evaluation year credits is earned is 30 credits, even though the enrolled credits is going to equal 33. Our system is not going to look at the rule for ADA students, and they're going to say, okay, they made the 30 credit per year, they're eligible for a payment. So that's the difference, excuse me, between the two full-time and the part-time path for this population. You should always put in the ADA flag, though, so we identify that they are an ADA student in case the next year they need to go part-time. We will review them appropriately. So here's a student example. An ADA student enrolls in 6 credit-bearing classes and 10 remedial classes. So you're only going to assess the student on the 6 credit-bearing courses. You're going to identify the aid applicable to the credit-bearing courses, and the student must successfully complete the credit-bearing classes. So we're not going to look at the remedial classes in the assessment at all. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about the allowable interruption process that we have in place. So there is a population of recipients who do not meet the annual credit or continuous enrollment, but under the allowable interruption, they may be able to retain the scholarship. So these would be Excelsior recipients. It is allowable under certain conditions. So the first condition, and this is when students seem to not remember or not think about, is they have to be on track prior to the reduction of credits or the break in enrollment. So they had to be an Excelsior recipient who was on track prior to the event that happened that made them go off track. You, schools or HESC, have to have a documentation to substantiate a break or reduction in credits, and we need to assess the student using the same criteria. So what we did a couple years ago is we divided up the responsibility for who would be approving an allowable interruption. So it was determined that students who are current Excelsior recipients and then have an event where they either have a break or they have a reduced credit load, those students would be assessed for whether or not they met the requirements for an allowable interruption by the colleges. The reason that we did that is we found that they're your students. You probably, in some cases, already know that they took a leave of absence because of the death of a parent, or they've been ill and they had to reduce their credit load. So we found that we were asking for information that the school already had, working with your students. So we divided it up, and any current Excelsior Scholarship recipient who's looking for an allowable interruption approval would go to the school, and the college would make the determination. HESC will be responsible for first-time Excelsior Scholarship applicants, because you wouldn't have had a history with them at that point, and anyone who is requesting an income eligibility determination. So they're looking for their income to be adjusted. So that's how we split up the allowable interruption. Schools will indicate a break reduction as part of certification, and the certification fields will be online or batch processing. And the information that you receive identifying that the student is approved for an allowable interruption will be listed, or you or HESC will be on a student status listing. It'll be on the manifest, and it'll be on our reports that we have for you under customized reports. We also added a screen with historical data. So supposing someone was getting a break approved allowance for a term, a spring term, and then the following fall, they come to your school and you're wondering why was they approved with 28 credits. You can look at this screen and it'll tell you that the student had an approved and what school approved it. So we did add a screen for historical data, mostly for transfers, but even at your own school, you may have forgotten or you might have changed some staff members. So we have this historical data for you. So let's talk about what is determined as an allowable condition. So we have very specific conditions under which you can consider a student for an interruption appeal. So medical or mental health condition provides the students from beginning or continuing the term or continuing a full-time course load. Parental leave, and that would be child up until a year old. An interruption to care for an immediate family member whose healthcare provider determined that care or support was necessary. Death of an immediate family member, parent, grandparent, siblings, step siblings, or they were called to active duty. Excuse me. So those are the conditions in which you can consider someone for an allowable interruption. So there's two ways that you can identify to us or let us know, or we will let you know that someone could possibly be ready for eligible. So if you decertify a student as not enrolled or not meeting the yearly credits, we send an email to the student indicating that they're not eligible. So you're going to decertify them at certification. We're going to send them an email telling them they're not eligible. We provide them information that they may be eligible for an allowable interruption under certain circumstances. And then they will reach out to you and ask for the information. Schools also have the option to initially certify using the flag if they were you approved a determination for break in enrollment. So you don't need to decertify and wait and then certify them. If you already know that they took the term off in the beginning of the term, they took it off because the parent had passed away, then you can just certify them using the flag for break-in enrollment. So you're going to have documentation on file, and this would be if they were approved prior to the end of the term, because you do still need the documentation, but you don't need to decertify them first if you're going to approve it before the end of the end of the term. So those are the two ways that you would be identified, or we would be identifying students that there was an option for them. So, as I mentioned, documentation is required. The school has to have written documentation. You can either use our information. We have a form that we use for our allowances, or you can create one, or you can use an approved leave of absence from the school. There does need to be on the form, or you do need to collect the documentation for the reason for the break or reduction in credit. And the date of the event needs to match terms where there's a break in enrollment or a reduced credit occurred. So if your student broke their leg in October and needed to reduce their course load, you would need to have the documentation that the doctor said, yes, you broke your leg in October. So for that fall term, you need to drop out of 2 credits or 2 classes to have the reduced load. So you just need to make sure that the dates of the event match the term that they're trying to get the allowance for. And it can be multiple terms. We did have a couple students that it was a full year that they were told they had to be out or allowed to be out. So it can go over multiple terms, but you do need to have the documentation dates match the terms that the student is requesting an allowance. So here's a medical break in attendance. A student enrolls for the fall term. They become ill. They were told by medical staff that they need to withdraw from all classes. There's no tuition liability in this example. They file an allowable interruption, including a doctor's note indicating they need to withdraw. The school approves and certifies the student with the appropriate flag and adjusts the system accordingly. So you're going to approve it as part of the certification, and this is for break-in enrollment only. The reduction in credits is a little different, but for break-in enrollment, you can certify online electronically. You can certify them with a 4 not enrolled or a 9 miscellaneous denial. Any other certification code will error out. You're going to use the indicator, which will show up as the last field on the certification that the student has a break in enrollment, and you can decertify them prior to the end of the term. The student in this scenario remains eligible for Excelsior. No points will be set for the term because they didn't get any funds, and this allows for continuing eligibility going forward. So this one is pretty straightforward. We've been doing it for a while. Schools, have been doing a great job with this part of the process, which is fully automated. So now let's talk about an example for reduction in credits. So the student enrolls the fall term for 15 credits, gets ill, the doctor indicates that they need to withdraw from 2 classes, and they have a full tuition liability. You're going to certify the student is eligible, however, you will not be able to, for the fall term. So the payment is received for the fall. Then the student enrolls and earns 15 credits for the spring term. So the student is not going to be eligible for the payment electronically with you because they didn't meet the 30 credits per year. So even though the event happened in the fall term, because they were fully liable and it was evaluation term 1, you certify it. Where you need the intervention from HESC is in the spring term because they have, earned 24 credits versus the 30 in the year. So again, we're going to approve this as part of the certification. This can be done online or electronically, which HESC has to do for now. We're going to create the payment for you. The student would remain eligible for Excelsior if you approve this. And so they will have continued eligibility going forward. So this process is manual at this time. We do not have programming in place to allow for you to certify with the reduction in credit. So the payment is going to be made by HESC on the behalf of schools. So we have set up this process where Lisa Hurley and her team over in the Excelsior Scholarship Unit will pay on behalf of the school. So we ask you to complete the approved allowable interruption form, which is a form that you can get right off our website. And you do a manual certification form because we don't know the fields, we don't know the amount, we don't know what they got for a Pell Grant. So you're going to provide us with the fields that are appropriate for the student. And now this is for the spring term, because remember for the fall, they were full-time, even though that's the term the event happened in, it's in that academic year. So we are going to post the payment on our scholarship database, and it's going to be paid on a consolidated scholarship roster. So this will not show up on the manifest. It will show up on a consolidated roster. We will certify it on your behalf because the information that you just gave us will give us the information we need to certify it. And then you will receive the payment on a consolidated RA. And this is the process that we hope to have automated shortly, but there's a much more variables to this process, so we do not have it automated at this time. But if you send us the information, we will certainly work to get it done in a timely fashion, and you will get the information and your payment for your students. So what happens in the subsequent term after the year where the allowable interruption was approved? And this is for either a reduction or it is a break in enrollment. So for the term following that, the student is you're going to certify the student without any indicator, and they're going to be certified as normal. We are always going to have you reset the evaluation term indicator to evaluation term 1, regardless of when the student began college. So if a term after the year of the issue should be evaluation term 2 because maybe they started in the spring term, you're always going to set it to evaluation term 1, and it will process because we'll know that it was an allowable interruption. So what that does is it restarts the evaluation term and now enabling students to start the year fresh and to meet the evaluation year requirement. So for a reduction in payment, they're not going to get, if they got a payment, they're not going to get an extra payment. So I know that's a lot of questions that we receive. For these, also the student is not going to be meeting the 30, 60, 90 requirement because they're going to, have the reductions. Now for break in enrollment, it's a little easier, but for the reduction, they got a payment. The payment counts towards their 8 if they're in a bachelor's degree. What we are doing in these programs is we're starting with evaluation term 1 always. So then they have the 365 days to earn 30 credits in the subsequent year. We know that they are not, especially for reduction in credit, we know they're not going to meet the 30 year 1, 60 year 2, 90 year 3. We're not asking them to catch up, but we are asking them to meet the 30 credit per year requirement. So that's how you're going to evaluate this population going forward, is did they meet the 30 credits per year? In associates, they'll get 4 terms. In a bachelor, they'll get 8 terms, and they will not get additional if they received it. I see there's chat questions, and we'll address those at the end for you. So also HESC has an eligibility determination for income adjustment. So for 22 income is used for 24, 25, and these exceptions follow what we do for TAP, death, disability, divorce, legal separation during 23 or 24, but prior to the start of the academic year. So we will allow for the same income adjustments that we do for TAP. The students have to complete an Excelsior income eligibility determination form, which is on our website. under the Excelsior scholarship and provide documentation to support the request to adjust income. And again, our Excelsior unit will handle these and reach out to the parents if we need more information or with the answers to this. So a lot of them, if they are applicants, you will not know. They would have gotten a denial for being over the income level, and then we will allow for this, and then we would reset their flag and make them eligible based on one of these criteria, if appropriate. So now I'm going to finish up with just a couple processing updates. Program of study. So for Excelsior, students are, if they're pursuing a double major or dual degree, they only need to be on track for one completion of a degree. This is a little bit different than some of our other programs, but it was written in law that they could have multiple majors, and so they only need to be on track for one. Students must declare a major in the appropriate time per SED regulations. So if they do not in the appropriate time, then they're not eligible for payment in that term. And the eligible payment, they can get a payment once the major is declared, but we cannot backdate it. So if they, in the fall, they should have had their major and they just didn't do it, they're not eligible for fall payment. They do it in December at the end of the term or in the between the break, they can get one for the spring payment, but they would not be able to get one for the previous fall. So there is some new guidance that came out in August about declaring a major. So you might want to look into that, but this is the regulations. We follow the SED regulations for that. For processing, this is something that we did not get into programming yet. It is a small population, but it is a valid thing, alternative that we are asking schools to help us out with. So a current recipient who is on track but does not have 30 credits in the current year is eligible for a payment under these conditions. So in year one, the student completed 33 credits in their program of study. So then in year two, they completed 27 credits for a total of 60 credits in 4 terms. So if they were all in their program of study, they don't have any banked credits, they are meeting the requirement of 60 credits in 4 terms. So they are on track for on-time completion. So what we're asking schools to do is to allow them to maintain eligibility, and they should receive the payment for year 2. However, we need to borrow the 3 credits from year 1 to make year 2 30 credits as you do the certification, not 27, so it will pay on the system. So let me show you what we are asking you to do. So you would certify the student as one eligible because they are on track. You would indicate whatever financial aid they're receiving, and this is the spring term of the second year, right? Because that's where they're at the 27 credits. So it would be evaluation term 2, most cases. Final term indicator, no. If it's a yes, you don't need to worry about the 60 credits because they are graduating, and then you don't need to do that. So, and then you're going to put in terms enrolled, it'd be at least 15 credits. The evaluation year credits earned would be 30 credits. So they would have the excess from year 1 to get to the 30 credits. And then the total credits earned would be the 60, 30, 90 to indicate that they're on track for on-time completion. This does not work if the student completed 27 credits year 1 and in year 2 they did 33. They have to have the excess credits in the first year in order to be eligible. Final year study, I think this is kind of old news, but students in their final year of study do not need to meet the 30 credit requirement. You're going to set the final term indicator to a Y, and then our system will not read if they earn 30 credits. It'll just read if they did at least 12 credits in each term. In the semester prior to the last semester, a student needs to enroll in 12 credits, but only 6 needs to be in their program of study. And in the final semester, a student needs to enroll in 12 credits, but only 1 course It doesn't even need to be a 3-credit class, needs to be in their program of study. So these are regulations from SED a couple years ago, and they follow through for Excelsior as well. In the final year of study, if they're on track, they will get a payment if they have earned 60 credits in 2 years, 120 credits in 4 years. So this is clarifying a question. So they don't technically need to be graduating. So there's a couple of students that have like a student teaching thing they need to do at the end, so they're not walking down and getting that diploma in their hand after their 120 credits. They would be eligible for the final payment even if they're not technically graduating. That would be their last payment, but no further payments. So I know that there was discussion a couple years ago. They just don't get, or they don't for whatever reason get a bachelor's degree, but they do earn the 60 credits in the 2 years, and then they move on to a 4-year school. They would be able to get the payment for that last term, not a payment for anything further. So maybe they were deficient and they needed to get 64 credits to get the diploma, and they only earned 60. They can get that 4th payment, and then maybe they're taking 4 credits for the summer, so they didn't technically graduate. That's okay. They won't get any more payments, but they can get the that 4th payment in the associate program. And that is what I have for today. I know that there are some questions there, so I'm going to stop sharing for a moment. And Mike, I'm sure I saw some questions coming through, and we can maybe handle them.
We have quite a bit of questions, so I'll start moderating them for you, and then folks will be able to unmute to then ask additional questions. So the initial question that started was, is the 125,000 a federal AGI, or is it based on New York State taxable income?
The federal AGI is what is the 125. So for Excelsior, we look at the federal adjusted gross income. I know that the TAP went up to 125,000 for net taxable income, but we do use federal AGI. So what you're going to find as well for this year is more students are going to have a TAP award, a minimum TAP award of $1,000 because the income went up. They would may still be eligible for an Excelsior, but there will be a TAP component in there when you're doing your financial aid. So, but it is federal AGI we look at for Excelsior.
And then this is a question related to the students who don't file the payment app. Is there a way to not include them on the manifest if they're showing as Excelsior eligible but no payment app?
I don't think they do show.
Yeah, they're not. They wouldn't have gone through income verification without a payment app, so they shouldn't be showing on the status list. So we need to see some examples of what schools are seeing if that's not the case.
Yep. Because they'd be an incomplete application even if they were a repeat recipient. So they should not be showing.
Yeah, they would meet the requirements of the status list. So how often are the status list reports on HESWeb updated? We have a school that ran the SSL to try to capture the non-payment app decertified 9 students and saying it wasn't picking them up. So is the SSL, can the SSL be used for that purpose to capture those students if they're not reportable on the SSL?
My understanding is that it was supposed to be allowable on the SSL. I will go back and check with our ITS area. I am getting a report, so if you would like to know if they were the people that were denied, I can get you a list if you want to reach out to me. This is lisa.simpson. Or you can email priority services, which Mike or I will get anyway. I will double check on that. And if not, maybe we can get a report out there so you will be able to see it. So I'll get back in touch on the reports and how we can know the DCERT 9 codes.
Right. And then someone's asking about PowerPoints. We are recording this session and we'll provide a copy of the slideshow and the recording in our resources area of the financial aid administrators page on HESWeb, the same area where we posted our part-time TAP presentation that we did last week.
Yeah, so it might take a couple days to get it up on there, but we will have it up there for you.
Yep. And then if a student was decertified at their school for not doing the TAP app and then transferred to the new school, how does the new school certify them if they are meeting credits?
So that's why we're asking the schools to take a look at these. If they were, so supposing they did earn the 30 credits in 2023, but they just didn't do a payment application, we're going to decertify them with a 9 and they're going to be ineligible. So there's two options. The school can take a look and add in the credits, right? The school that they're at in 2023. If they don't, and in 2024 they're at your school, you can send an email to Priority Services and we will update the system to make them eligible for 2024, as long as, the student is continuous enrollment and meeting the requirements at this point for 2024 as a transfer. So enough credits transferred in and they are still on track. We will update the system so it reflects the student as being eligible for 2024 with and allow you to certify.
And then we have a number of questions on the transfer students. So can you just clarify, do schools get a new credit verification request for a
School
continuing recipient who's transferring?
Schools do not get a new credit request, and I know some schools have asked for it because the student is already a recipient. They were a recipient at the first school, so we have no mechanism to send out a credit verification because they're already an approved recipient, right? If they're applying for the first time ever at the transfer school, so supposing they did not apply at the community college and now they're going to the 4-year, then we would ask you for the credits. But if they were a recipient and got it from their first year and now in their 3rd year they're going to a different school, we are not. Where the second school, the transfer school, is going to identify and assess them is at certification. There are no consideration for students who transfer in term 2. So they only get the benefit if they are transferring and they are at evaluation year 1.
All right, and then on the topic of transfers, what if it's a scenario where they went to the 2-year school, did not complete the degree, but are bringing 60 transfer credits over to the 4-year transfer school? Can the 4-year transfer school consider them eligible, even though they may have been decertified by the 2-year college for not completing the degree in 2 years?
Well, that's the topic that I talked about, like right before we stopped the presentation, right before the end. If they earn so the first school, if they earn 60 credits, but didn't get that diploma, but they were on track, 4 terms, 60 credits, they can get a payment for that last term. Then they go in the next semester, they go to school B, and you're taking 4 credits and 60 credits 4 terms, then they are eligible. So that was clarification a couple of years ago on the process, is that they don't physically have to have the piece of paper saying they had a degree to get a payment. They needed to be on track. So say a community college where the student is in their 4th term, they're earning 30 credits for the year, it would be they would be eligible for a payment. And we did bring this up in trainings that we have done all along once that determination got made. I think it was last year that we had our attorneys take a look at what was written in law and what we could and couldn't do. So for
All right, and then
2023, if you have a student in that scenario, you can go back and adjust it if you didn't upfront.
And then just to reiterate, the students who are coming in, transferring in evaluation term 2 spring, they would only be eligible if they're coming in with the required number of credits. They don't have a catch up, right?
They do not. Yeah.
Okay. So if they've gone to school 1.5 years, they should be bringing in 45 credits in that spring term. If not, they're not going to be eligible.
That's right. As long as if it's evaluation term 2, then they don't get the benefit. Yeah.
And then can you talk about, and we've gotten this question sometimes, for students in the 2-year program who are completing the requirements in the 3rd term and then kind of taking that gap term before starting the 4-year program? How does that work? Well, how should those students be certified?
So we're finding that a lot of students are coming in with a lot of banked credits. So they're coming in a lot of credits from high school. So there are a good population of students now that finish their associate degree in 3 terms. So they have enough credits because maybe all their gen ed credits were taken in high school. So if a student is in that scenario and they want to go on to a 4-year school, but they want to start fresh with the fall term, right? So they want to start with for sequencing of classes going forward, they want to start with a fall term. What you as a school can do, if they're in that 4th term, but they graduated in 3, you're not going to set the final term indicator in that 3rd term to a Y. You're going to make that a no. You're going to, in the 4th term, you're going to use the banked credits that you had from what they brought in high school, and you're going to certify the student with that 4th term. You're going to decertify them as a 9, which is a miscellaneous denial. But you're going to take those extra credits and you're going to set up the student. So tuition would be 0. The enrolled credits would be whatever it would take to get you to 30 credits. You're going to add it to evaluation year credits earned. So again, they're meeting the 60 credits or whatever, 60 or more for an associate's degree. So you're going to put that under evaluation year credit, evaluation year 2. You're going to put the total credits earned as 30 or more. And then your total credits are going to also be the 60 or more credits. So that makes the student appear to be eligible because they are. You're just using the banked credits. And I had that actually, that example on a slide earlier. So when you get the presentation, you can take a look at it on how to replace an entire term. But you can do that, and then the student's eligibility carries over into the next year.
Perfect. So someone is asking, can we share with schools the sample emails that students receive when they get a school decertification?
Yeah, well, what we tell them, we don't give any information. We just tell them to log into their account for further details. But yes, I don't see there's any harm to share what they're going to see. What they're going to see is what is on their account. So they have to log into their HESC account to get it, and that's for privacy and safety's sake. So any denial or denial for credits, or what are we looking for? I can get you a sample of denial for credits.
Yeah, I think it's just decerts. But again,
Okay.
it's just a very vanilla message that says your status has been updated. Log into
Correct.
your account to see what's changed. So I don't
Right.
think there's any. I think schools think there's additional information on there. There's not.
Yeah, there's not on that, but when they get into their account, they can see the detail of what is missing. So maybe we can provide a sample to schools. We can send it out to our contacts at the colleges and just give you a sample of what may be said if they're denied for credits or they're denied for residency. It's a message. It's not an email that goes out. So it's just a message on their account. Or when you have a student come in, you can ask them to look at it if they said they were denied for a certain reason. But I'll send you a couple, I'll send you 1 or 2. I'll put it out on our website just as sample. Or actually, I won't put it on our website. I'll send it out to the group.
Yep. And then just to kind of close the books on transfers, again, if a school knows based on transfer credits that student, there's no way that they're going to catch up in term 2. Is the student still entitled for that first term payment as a
Yeah.
transfer?
Yes. Yep. If they were in evaluation term 1, they were on track at school A in 2023, they come to you for fall 2024 and you're only accepting 10 credits, you still have to give them the first payment if they are at least 12 credits in the program of study at your school. So you do need to give them the first one and then not the second one.
All right. So changing topics, this is with reduction in credits. So if we have a school where the summer is their trailer term, even though we consider summer to be our header, if the student has reduced course load, credit load appeal approved in the fall term, and the spring term does not get paid because they didn't meet the 30 credits from there, can they use the summer credits to then be paid for the spring semester? Can summer be used to make up?
So it's 360, it's the 365-day period from when they first received. So if they were a fall applicant, it would always be fall, winter, spring, summer. If they started in a spring term, it would always be summer, spring, summer, fall, and winter. That's how we assess it for the 365-day period.
All right, and then someone's asking about processing turnaround times for file exchanges. So what's the usual turnaround time when we exchange files like the 8977
So
response files?
So we typically run manifest processing on for the current year, which is 2024, we'd be running it on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And for the 2023, it would be on Tuesday, Thursday. And then if you look on the HESC website for the other like student status listings, it'll tell you that goes out once a week and when the other pieces are going. But for manifests and things like that, we have a schedule for the current year. The most recent year is 3 days a week. For the other days, it's 2 days a week.
Right, and then someone's asking about early decertification. So if there's circumstances where they know a student's not going to meet the requirements by the end of the term, do we allow for early decertification or do they have to wait to the end of the term?
If they're trying to do it online, they have to wait for the end of the term. I think if you are sending it electronically, I think in some instances it does, but it's probably best to just wait until the end of the term. I can take that back to IT to see if we can adjust that. So decertifications can be done earlier. But right now I would wait until the end of the term to decertify.
And then someone's asking about students who have filed the payment app, the TAP app, and the TAP app has an IVP issue, but Excelsior has IVP completed. Can they get Excelsior, or does the full both TAP and Excelsior need to be on cleared for IVP for them to proceed with certification?
They can get both, or they can get the Excelsior if it goes through IVP.
Yeah, usually they should clear. If they clear one, they should clear both. So
Right.
and Excelsior actually has tougher rules than TAP for IVP. So I would suggest the school just reach out to us to Priority Services and we can look at the account, see why TAP hasn't cleared IVP. It could just
Yeah.
be an error in the parent data reported on the TAP
Well,
app.
sometimes we are looking, we have other mechanisms to adjust for federal AGI. So there is that can happen.
All right, and then
Mike, there's an emergency in the building. The alarms are going off and I have to leave the building.
okay,
I'm sorry,
so
we have to cut it short.
yep, we're gonna have to cut it short. So
Okay,
thank you,
bye.
everyone. We'll keep the questions. We'll save the presentation, and Lisa has to jump off the call. We'll try to get to the questions that were not answered at the end of the chat. So thank you all. Please look for the recording on our website. If you go to the financial aid administrators page on the hesc.ny.gov site, you click under academic partners, you click on financial aid professionals. There is a button that says resources. If you scroll down that page, and there's a link there for our webinar recordings. So thank you all very much. We're going to end the session, and please look for the recording, and we'll try to post the session Q&A as well. Thank you.